Welcome back to Toys on Tap. This week is a little bit of a turn of events. We usually talk about soft vinyl figures or designer toys, and this week we get to jump into WhiskeyJack Toys 3 3/4 G.I. Joe style figures, and they are crushing it and doing it well. There is a start in heartbreak and like explosion, but then they come together, they make WhiskeyJack, and just bring the heat when releasing figures. And they have another Kickstarter coming up next month. If you want more Toys on Tap, you can like, follow, rate, review wherever you get podcasts. It is so helpful for us, and it's free for you. So please go like, subscribe wherever you get them. Leave a review, 5 stars. It's amazing and helpful for us, and I couldn't tell you how much we desire for you to love this podcast. So please do that. If you want to follow us along on all socials at Toys on Tap, that's where you're going to get all the goodies and all that stuff. And if you want to support the show even more and become a sponsor or talk through what it looks like for us to help you with your Kickstarter or launch or anything like that, reach out to us, Toys on Tap Podcast at gmail.com. That's how you get in touch with us. You can do that or send us a DM. We will reply, I promise. Now let's get to this week's episode of Toys on Tap. Dude, I'm excited. You reached out, I want to say in like 2024.
Maybe.
And
yep.
We didn't, we couldn't make something happen.
Yeah.
And then, it was the coolest message that like 2 years later, you're like, well, the toys are in people's hands. How do we make this happen? So yeah. I'm excited to talk.
Sure.
I mean, usually we kind of talk about history of the person, the artist, and all that stuff. But because we're talking about a company and a whole setup, I'm just excited to learn about the toy brand because I've seen the toys.
Sure. Yeah.
They're insane.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no problem. We can talk about whatever. Before
we start anything, like we do with every episode, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay. My name is Darren Howlett. I own WhiskeyJack, which is a toy company. And, we make action figures, 3 3/4 inch action figures.
Which is no small feat. I mean, this started, it was Kickstarter, and 3 3/4 means plastic, which means injection molding and high fees and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, holy moly. Take me back to the inception of the idea before we go to Kickstarter.
Okay. I'm going to give you a really quick version of a long period of time. But,
sure.
So when I was a kid, I found G.I. Joes in a mall. It was 1983. And I just immediately fell in love with them. I'd had Star Wars figures, but I was like, oh my God, these can do anything. You can do anything with these. These have, just the world opened up with what you could do. And I fell in love with them. And then somewhere over the next few years, I decided that when I grew up, I was going to make some at some point. Skip forward probably, 5, 6, 7 years, started working with some guys trying to develop a comic and kept re-envisioning those characters as toys. And when everything broke up, so I'm like 17, 18, I was like, this is the basis. This is the start of toys for me. And I don't know how I'm going to get there. I can't afford school or an education, but somehow, some way I'm going to get there. And then, over the next decade or so, just kept developing ideas. And all of a sudden then I had 4 binders. Like I went from 1 binder to like 4 binders of ideas. And then, around 2012, a friend that was starting up a toy company, asked me to get involved more or less financially, but that financial involvement would allow me to watch it all happen. And, that particular project kind of failed, but for him, it immediately rolled into a new project, and I got out of it. And he has a toy company now called Marauder Toys.
Cool.
And they're pretty well known throughout the community. but so that was sort of my beginning of my education. And that was really quickly followed up by, there was a guy named Black Major, and Black Major does sort of G.I. Joe adjacent figures. He's got a lot of the old molds and reproduces things in new colors, new whatever. And he was getting out of the game and wanted to sell. And so I bought that company and went with it and renamed it Red Laser. It was Red Laser's Army. A lot of people supported us as Red Laser's Army, and from 2014 to 2018. And then
pause right there real quick. You
Sure.
bought a company that had access to the original molds?
no, they were
Okay.
they were remade molds.
Okay.
They weren't the original molds. I had put feelers out there forever trying to find original molds. I'm like, they can't all be broken. I reached out to Fun School, which was the last known place of some of them, which is in India. They had like 18 of the molds. Reached out to anyone that we knew that had molds, but or where we last saw that stop, like, oh, that was last in their hands. Wonder if they still have it or know where it is now. But that just kept going nowhere. So anyways, we did Red Laser for 5 years, learned all the ins and outs. I say we, because my key designer is essentially now my partner in all this.
Cool.
And then from there, when Red Laser sort of came to an end and it's run its course, it was clear that a big mishap happened, a lot of unfortunate things, and the decision was, do I invest a lot of money to get this back on track, or do I just start something completely new? Essentially, am I ready to do the stuff I've always wanted to do since I was a kid? And that's what happened we sort of shifted gears around 2019, 2020. So that's the long story to get to where did this start? About 2020.
It is crazy that, toys have this weird thing where they kind of just get to be in our lives and we don't even know what's going on. So someone invites you in just to almost watch what's happening.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And then as that's going on, learning the ins and outs and then trying to get the molds, tracking down molds is no small feat.
There was a really brief, a toy set in 1997 called, it was the Bronze Bombers. It was a reissue, or not a reissue, but it was a new attempt by that company to do, I think they were trying to relaunch Bronze Bombers. Mm-hmm. And they somehow got the actual real Hasbro molds. Like they had somehow licensed them. So this was after G.I. Joe had ended, and they were, with permission doing them. And that's what started me on that hunt in 1997. Yeah. As soon as I saw that, it was like, oh, so the molds are still out there. I got to find them. And it took me, 11 years to find out that I was never going to find them. And that's like, okay, well, I'm going to buy this guy's company that has been remaking the molds. So, yeah.
So you found companies that had the molds, but never found any of the originals, and then ended up buying a company that had already invested the money to make the original, basically redo them, which that's a crazy way to start because molds are not cheap.
No, they're not. And it was such a, you get what you pay for, right? Mm-hmm. Like I knew that it wasn't truly on the up and up. Like I knew that it all laid in a gray area. So I bought a company that professed to own 6 steel molds and paid for that and for the goodwill and for the whatever, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then he just disappeared. And when I went to go access all those molds, there was only 2. So I paid tens of thousands of dollars for things that didn't exist. And I was like, I was devastated. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. But at the same time, I was like, well, what did you expect?
Yeah.
You're dealing with somebody that's pretty, morally dubious, and that's what you get. So, yeah. So,
and this, of course, is overseas. There's no way that we have the molds here.
No. Yeah, it's all overseas. Yeah.
And my assumption is China.
Yeah.
Okay, so how big are these molds? Massive, right?
Yeah, they're massive. Yeah, they're huge. They're like an engine block.
So this guy said, I have 6 of them. And you were like,
Yeah.
sick.
And showed me pictures and whatever. Yeah. And
That's
then,
heartbreaking already. That's a heartbreaking way to start a company.
yeah. And honestly, it went out the same way. Like, the way that Red Laser wrapped up was, to trying to distill a lot of activity into really quick. So our product manager, who sort of represented us over there, and put in all the work orders, whatever, he took $50,000 as a deposit for a production run from me. And then everything went sideways and showed me that this wasn't able to happen. That wasn't able to happen. We had to move to a new facility, et cetera, et cetera. And because of that, he was going to need a little bit more to get everything back on track. And I was like, okay. And this is somebody I'd done many production runs with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm tapped out. I don't have any more money. So I turned to a lot of people that were going to buy large amounts of product, like other retailers, special interests, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, hey, normally I would charge you guys at the end, but I need the money up front this time to get this back on track. And so everybody sent me, 10,000 here, 10,000 there, whatever. So then I sent it to them, to him again. And then he effed off. He cut communication with everybody. Nobody's ever heard from him again. So he took $100,000 from me in deposits on production runs that were never going to happen. And I was like, so that's what he said. That's where it ended. It was like, okay,
talking about a fear that is so real.
Yeah.
Like it almost brings tears to my, because thousands of dollars goes overseas.
Yeah.
Like some of our production runs have been about $30,000.
Yeah.
And which is not 100.
Yeah.
So, but that is a big fear because realistically, I mean, now we've gotten to a point where a lot of factories, they don't want bad blood because they work with a lot of small creators and they know that social media is real.
Yeah.
But it is still so scary every time to just say like, yep, here's $20,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah,
you have some business sense in here. You've asked for these fees kind of up front from some of these businesses.
Yeah.
And then it's gone.
Yeah.
So
and
what did you do with those businesses?
Sure. Yeah. I did everything I could to pay them back over the next few years. And, I mean, in all honesty, there's some I'm still chipping away at, and that's 7 years later. Holy smokes. And then, there was other ways. Like I was sitting on a ton of product too. And so some of those we just swapped out, they were looking for this new product, but they agreed to exchange for this old product that I still had and what have you. Essentially, the whole Red Laser thing, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to be making great money, because I'd made 100 figures. So 100 figures with production runs between 500 and 2,000 pieces each. And, you do even the most rudimentary math. You're like, oh, there's got to be some money in there. No.
No. Yeah.
I didn't make a single penny doing Red Laser, but it was just an expensive education. It was, like I lost money on it, but I learned everything I needed to learn. Do the molds from Red Laser exist somewhere? Probably.
Okay, but you don't have access.
Yeah, the factory, that was all part of it. When the guy took off or became, persona non grata or whatever, when it disappeared, the factory he had told me he had to figure things out because this second factory was having problems and shut down. So I have a friend in China that is in toy production that, I pleaded with him, he's a very busy person with his own, whatever. And I was like, can you go find out the fate of this? Like, is this real? And he went to that factory and it was all like chained up, boarded up. He sent me pictures. He's like, this place is out of business. This does not, like, they're shut down. So I assume the molds are in there, but there was nobody home. There was no way, like, chains on doors kinds of things. So,
but that's crazy that the molds are still in that building.
Yeah. and a partial production run because I had updates of pictures. So like
Yeah.
thousands of figures mid production were sitting in those bins. But yeah,
It is interesting. You said 100 figures and anywhere between 500.
500, 2,000. Actually, the first three figures I did 3,000 pieces each. But yeah,
And if
after
I'm
that,
doing
everything
some
was,
math right, that's like 200,000 or 20,000 figures altogether.
at least no, that'd be about closer to your first like 150, 200,000. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And they were all the like pin GI Joe style.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Over years. Yeah.
that's crazy. So this is
Yeah.
just all of this was just the lead up to get to the company that we currently have right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So that was all put to bed in 2017, 2018.
And you thought, and you became a glutton for punishment and
Yeah.
decided to come back.
Well, that's just it. I said, talking to Matt, who is my, partner in that, so to speak, creative partner in that. And I just said, I'm not done. Like I am beaten and I'm down and I need some time to lick my wounds and come back from this. But I'm like, I'm not done with this. Are you? And he was like, no, I still love designing figures and all of this. And so I had thrown around a couple of ideas from those books. I was like, these are what I think are the easiest entry level ideas for various reasons. Like one, this has the most mass appeal. Two, this one has the least startup cost. Three, like et cetera, et cetera. And I just said, let's see if we can develop any of these into something. And, so I was kind of pushing for one, but literally while we started developing it, or it wasn't even that we had started developing it, it was on the table. Mm-hmm. And then, Carson was starting Operation Recall, which is a military, 80s military-ish or 90s military-ish 3 3/4 inch toy line. And then a friend of mine, Steve Plett, who actually tried to buy Red Laser from me, but I wouldn't let him. I'm like, look, it's dying.
It's gone. Yeah,
it's dying. And you don't want to it's just debt and loss. Like, and he kept pushing and he's like, no, there's still value there. There's still, I'm like, seriously, man, there isn't. And, so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to start my own. I'm like, power to you, and which was Delta 17, which is a 3 3/4 inch military toy line. A friend, Jason, that I was trying to develop a space toy line with, he was coming out with, Strike Force Alpha. And then I had formed a thing with a group of friends, called Longbow. And then I stepped out when I realized that we were just working on completely different timelines. Like they were looking at doing one toy line over the next decade. And I'm like, oh, in the next decade, I'm going to have 10 toy lines out. Like we're just working on different scales. I need to pull myself out. If I'm not allowed to work on those, while we're doing this, I need to, whatever. But that was a 1980s themed military, 3 3/4 inch line. So everybody I knew that was doing startup toy companies was doing 3 3/4 inch, which is totally makes sense. So that's my milieu. So all my friends are, all of my connections are all sort of those same, but every one of them were military. And so here I am with this military idea. And we just immediately were like, okay, well, let's just push that one to the side for a minute and, see what else we can do that would appeal to the big 3 3/4 inch audience, but not, tread the same ground that everybody else is treading right now. And so that's when we were like, well, hey, this ninjas thing, like ninjas became a big deal in G.I. Joe near the end and the core and all the other, 80s properties. And we were like, well, we've got this ninja line. Let's develop this. Let's go further with this. And
heck yeah.
That's where that went. Yeah.
So, I mean, it is always crazy. So I usually dabble in just soft vinyl when I do production. Yeah. And you forget that in every part of the like toy scene and 3 3/4 and soft vinyl and designer toy, like there are groups of people that are just running production nonstop. Yeah. And, everyone hears about the opposite, right? So, I know pretty well, like how much things cost when doing soft vinyl now. And there's always the like, one day I want to do 3 3/4, but I've heard bad things about cost
Yeah.
and stuff.
It's fraught with like, there's just so many, you know, no pun intended, but there's so many moving parts.
Yeah.
You know, like there just is like, there's so many different places where it can go wrong. Like your design has to, like we had a huge hiccup midway where, even though we had sent everything engineered and we had tried with our own 3D prints, everything seemed to line up and work well. But when they cut the molds and then they ran a couple of prints off for us or runs off for us, the legs were they weren't like you couldn't, one leg would always go up. And we're like, okay, well, what the hell?
Yeah.
And that took like months of back and forth to get to a point where we were happy with it, where it was like, oh, okay. But like, that's just one place where multiple joints occur and, you know, a major problem, a major setback, months of like some retooling of molds, extra costs. And that's just one piece, you know? So, yeah, the potential is there that if you really don't know what you're doing, like it could take years between the submitting your 3D sculpts and having them properly engineered the right way. So,
which is insane. And
yeah,
you know, I've gotten, in running Kickstarters, my big thing is like, I always want to be on time for delivery. And I've been really hard on others that haven't been on time.
Yeah.
But then when you do the deep dive of what it takes to make some of these figures, not being on time is kind of an understandable thing.
For sure.
And so I've had to like slowly walk that back a little bit when it comes to things like 3 3/4 or that type of plastic, especially because you're doing so many things with molds and it has to like have the right tension and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just it, that a lot of people are like, well, Hasbro is always able to put things out on a regular schedule, or Mattel is like, they solicit product and it's there, you know, 3 months later. And I'm like, well, Hasbro and Mattel probably spend, you know, a $250 million in production. Like those factories know they can't mess up anything or they lose out on millions of dollars. And second, you know, you get into just the specific lines too, that same thing, like you're looking at, okay, well, if this company said, you know, we're going to do this figure and we need 250,000 units. And then there's me and I'm like, okay, I need this figure and I need 500 pieces. And they're like, okay, we'll just wait until we can fit you in. We've got to do this order and this order and this order first. You're just bigger clients than you. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that I can have the best intentions. I can have every T crossed, every I dotted, everything perfect. I can have a team of engineers having everything perfectly ready. And still, when it goes to production in China, if I'm putting in a small order, which I have to, I'm still 3rd, 4th, 5th on the list. I keep getting pushed down in that production run. There's just no way to go above it unless I start ordering 10,000 units, you know, and hopefully that comes down the road, even for any one of us. I think Carson's the one that's most likely to get there, where he'll be able to do that, where he'll be able to order 10,000 units and he'll have that fly, like this is the figures I'm soliciting. Hey, 6 months later, they're in hand, you know, like I think that he's going to be the first of us to get there.
I mean, even I tell people all the time, even at our height, I think we did like 500 or 600 figures, of soft vinyl. And that is still a tiny run. Like in comparison to some of these companies, we're still on the bottom end.
Right.
And okay, so we go through all that turmoil, all that, lick our wounds a little bit. We bounce back and we create WhiskeyJack, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. WhiskeyJack Toys. And which, I mean, a lot of people, I don't know. It's a bird. It's a bird that's around me locally, like where I live.
A WhiskeyJack?
WhiskeyJacks. Yeah.
Okay.
And, my grandpa was a huge bird guy, a bird watcher, bird lover. Everything in his house was birds. And when he died and he was a huge influence in my life, like huge. He was essentially my second dad. Mm-hmm. And I was up in the mountains and WhiskeyJacks kept coming to me and I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to name my company after these birds. And my grandpa would be really happy if I did that. So That's it. And then, yeah, so I started WhiskeyJack, and the idea being, the whole premise of WhiskeyJack is I'm going to make a whole bunch of toy lines. They're all going to be 3 3/4 inch O-ring construction. They're all going to be cross compatible. They're going to be separate stories. But if you're just into the figures, you can pick and choose from each line your favorite figures and make your own thing. Like I just wanted everything to be compatible. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
How did we narrow down, before we get too far into the weeds, how did we narrow down a new factory with all of these like past issues?
sure. Yeah.
How did you figure out which one wouldn't do the same?
Sure. So like I was saying, there was a guy, in a story or two back there where he and I and a friend of mine, John, so the three of us, this was in between, in that limbo. This was as Red Laser had ended, it had been put to bed, and I hadn't figured out what I was doing next. I really wanted to work with Matt, my key guy. But other thing, I was exploring other options and just seeing, he wasn't ready. And so Jason and John and I set about making a sci-fi line. And we were just exploring. We were seeing if it had legs. Everybody's putting in their best ideas, seeing what we could come up with, seeing if something came out of it. And we became really good friends. And John I still consider one of my best friends. He and I went and created Longbow with Troy. And I'm not part of that company anymore, but John's one of the best people I've ever met in my life. And so Jason, and we realized it wasn't going to work. We each made an amiable split where essentially what you threw in, you got to take with you. Cool. So Jason turned that into Strikeforce Alpha, his alien design, which was phenomenal. He used that in his toy line. But Jason had been at this factory for 20 years. He has a company called White Elephant Toys. He has a couple of things, but he has a company called White Elephant Toys, and over 20 years, he's produced, I think, like 12 or 13 toy lines, all small runs, all pretty small. But he's had actually a couple of licenses. Like he had the Rocketeer license for a while and produced action figures for Toys R Us, like an exclusive run for Toys R Us. So like he's got it dialed in. He's worked with these people forever, trusts them, they trust him. He puts in, he submits for a line. They turn around and get it for him right away because he's just a long-term reliable client. And so when he saw all the problems I was having with Red Laser, he just said, hey, this toy line, this sci-fi thing we were working on, he's like, that's going to be produced at my factory. Like, there's no one I trust more than these people. And so, yeah, the introductions were made and what have you. And so even though we all split up, I still decided that that's where I was going to do things in the future, and sort of built a relationship with them. And then, sort of skipping forward into our production run for this toy line.
Yeah.
Jason stepped in and helped us get it across the finish line with them just because he has such a history with them. So, Jason is a great guy, fantastic guy. And, that's where we found our new facility that we could trust implicitly. Like we totally trust them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
2024 comes. That's when the Kickstarter goes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You do all the promo stuff. You have, I'm assuming, I don't know, you have prototypes at that point. Yeah.
Not even prototypes. These were,
okay.
We had taken those 3D sculpts. We had 3D printed them out of resin. And then, gussied them up and painted them as they weren't paint masters, but they were sort of like paint pilots. Like, this is generally what we want this figure to look like. So we started showing those around, but those were ultimately going to be sent to China as starters. Right.
And people loved, hated, like.
We got tons of great feedback.
Great.
It just wasn't enough.
Okay.
So we started a Kickstarter so I think it was 2023, actually, the first one. And we didn't know how to get our word out to a lot of people. We didn't know how to get a lot of whatever. So midway through the Kickstarter, I had realized I was too ambitious. I was trying to get too many figures out there all at once. There wasn't enough backing. So midway, I was like, let's pull this and retool it. So we did. We had tons of people that were very interested, but it took us another, I don't know, 6 or 7 months to retool the whole idea and then relaunch it. And when in the relaunch, it was for far fewer figures, but also a smaller threshold of what we needed to make happen.
Yeah,
so,
like 75,000 or something like that, right?
I think it was actually 40,000. That was what we needed to make things happen. So
which people don't understand. Like there is backside and a bottom out that happens in Kickstarters where like there's orders that don't get funded, like dropped orders. There are taxes that hit on the back end, 14 days until you actually get your money. Like so many things like kind of cycle in there. So you get it and you start production of the molds. So it's in 2024-ish for the second one that gets funded. When did you say you'd deliver by?
We had hoped to deliver. Well, I don't think we ever put an actual year. We said, or time. I think we just said, we hope from our experience with Red Laser that this is going to take about a year, maybe a little longer, but there's obviously no guarantees. This is our first time at this facility. And, again, with the whole thing with Red Lasers, that was sort of fast and loose. And there was very little QC involved in that. So when it would go to production, they wouldn't like, well, here we ran a figure. Do you approve of this? Do you approve of that? It was always the same molds. I knew the connection points. I knew if there was any issues already. I didn't need to inspect it again. Mm-hmm. I was just like, show me that you got the colorway, which is, the paint deco.
Yeah.
Show me that you got the colorway right. And we can skip this whole 4-month approval process, and so they would just take a picture and show me that the figure's done, like painted the way I wanted. I'm like, perfect. Okay, go for it. And so I'd skipped all that, a couple of processes on the regular basis. And so when we went to kickstart this Hidden Force, I assumed it would be relatively the same process, totally not really anticipating the fact that everything that we're doing involves new molds every time. And every one of those has to go through this 4 to 6 month process of back and forth, where they send the first sample and then you inspect it. And invariably you're going to find something you don't like. So you're like, you need to tweak this, or this needs to be shaved, or this needs to be adjusted. Goes back, then they do it again, which takes, it's not like they do it the next day. It's like 2 months, then they'll get to it. Mm-hmm. Then they send it back to you. And you're like, still not right. That's going to go. Goes back again. You're waiting another 2 months for them to adjust that tooling. And it's just this ongoing process. So
yeah. With 3 3/4, I mean, we being 70s, 80s, and 90s kids do get spoiled, right? So the 3 3/4 prices were $2.99 to maybe $5.99 growing up, and that was like the sweet spot. And now Super 7 with minimal articulation is right around 18 to 20.
Yeah.
And so when you did this Kickstarter, what was the goal in thinking through how much you wanted to charge per piece?
Yeah.
While being realistic and
sure,
kind of going with what it costs.
I think that we had put our finger on 27.
Okay.
And then by the time that everything started going along, I don't want to be cliche where we're like, we're just in this for the fun of it and we don't want to make money, but it's true. Like we've decided we're not going to make money for the first few years and don't even try, like just make enough to make the next thing happen. And so by the time everything sort of trickled down or whatever, we're down to 25 now, but it's absolutely one of our goals is to bring it down. So like, I would love to be able to sell our figures for $20. And we actually have, Matt came up with a method where we might be able to get figures in people's hands for about $19.
That's crazy.
So we're looking into that right now and we're really excited, but it's sort of a side offshoot of the toy line, but it's still. So my goal was always to try, not like this was the end goal. It was like, hey, when we hit a certain level, I would really like to try something. And, pending the approval of all the not partners, but my associates, my friends and all this. So the idea was that we would produce the mold, make great figures, lots of paint applications, tampos, awesome accessories. But then, if possible, again, I'm laughing because I know I'm shooting for the stars here.
Yeah.
A couple of years down the road, when everybody's sort of happy and content, and we've made enough money to make a story, because we have a story, we just have no way of getting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
But once we've achieved all those levels where we have a complete package, to approach a Target or a Walmart or whatever and say, this is something we did, and we can make a sort of a cheaper version of it if you can order 20,000 units. It might not have all the exact same paint applications. It'll be like a little bit more stripped down, less accessories, et cetera, and just see where that goes. Because I honestly don't know where that conversation goes.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the goal, is like, let's see if we can make a mass market figure down the road. We'll see.
The thing I always think about is, I mean, factories, it's such a wide in between, right? You have like the really expensive figures, the really cheap figures.
Yeah.
On this end, you have figures that sell for $1.25 to $1.50. Final Faction at Dollar Tree, which how no one knows how.
Yeah.
And they like are
the closest they could have come, and this is from the math I know.
Yeah.
So about 10 years ago, I was looking in doing a 5-piece action figure, like a 5-piece or 5 points of articulation.
Yeah.
You got your torso, which is 2 pieces, your 4 limbs, and your head. And I was quoted a price at 10 years ago of $1.57 a unit if I ordered 10,000 pieces. And so that was all cast in one color and a single paint app on each piece. And so I would assume that that's sitting around $2.50 a piece now, maybe $2.50, maybe $3 a unit for that. Like if I were to go for that same quote.
Yeah.
So the only thing on top of that they could have done to reduce the price is if they owned the factory, which they must.
Yeah.
And that's the only way they can do it even cheaper. So,
which is bonkers to me. And then you have like the upwards cost of whatever NECA figures and that kind of stuff, or Marvel Legends. It is insanity to go back into it and then be successful in it and still be willing to do this. So the Kickstarter launches, tell me how many figures are in the Kickstarter.
At first it was, I think we ultimately landed on 12 to solicit. And then we have a whole bunch of so we've designed everything in waves. It's 6 figures each wave, and we have 24 waves planned. We go a little crazy with planning in advance.
Yeah, holy moly. So
we did the first 2 waves, or the first and the fourth wave, actually. We skipped 2 and 3, and we're coming back to them. But that, nobody cares. That doesn't mean anything to anybody. And then in that time, we had a whole bunch of other figures that we liked that fit the story, but didn't fit into any of our waves. And so that was just it. Matt's just like, hey, during the Kickstarter, why don't we do some Kickstarter exclusives that are these extraneous figures that don't fit the story, but they're still awesome figures, And so it ended up being 15. There was 2 Kickstarter exclusive and 1 vendor exclusive. So. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. I always tell people when they're doing a Kickstarter, if they want to launch and have multiple figures, it's like do 1 figure and multiple paint apps to start. But you took that and said, no. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that was really our downfall the first time. So I was trying to launch 24 figures. We had all these stretch goals and ultimately it was for 24 figures. And it was just too overwhelming for people. They were like, I don't want 24 figures of a toy line I've never heard of. Like I want to get to know this first before I commit, So that was why we dialed back.
I do have like a shop talk question for sure.
Sure.
When you are going through these, toy companies throughout history have done so well at this. We have the pizza launcher vehicle from Ninja Turtles, which has been used 4 times for sure. And there was a 5th one with Earthworm Jim that never got produced. So like reused. Are there parts of some of these figures that are reused for other people that it makes it better.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, I mean, the whole line thus far is essentially 2 figures.
Yeah.
It just, we keep swapping this piece and this piece. That head's never been on that torso, like that, whatever. It's really Matt, our designer, the designer of all this. Matt is absolutely insane in making a piece look completely different from itself just through paint applications. Like, he is just, that is the master. Like I said, you're looking at that whole range of 15 figures so far. That's just 2 figures, that's 2 sets of legs. That's 4 heads.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3 torsos. Almost all of them have the same arms.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, but they all look unique enough through their paint applications that you don't really pick it up on first glance.
I would for sure. This is, if anyone ever sees a ninja toy line coming from Toys on Tap, just know that there is one ninja and it has been repainted in different ninja colors.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, because it's our bread and butter, it's what the whole thing is.
Yeah.
The next line, like the next wave and the next wave, introduce more molds. We couldn't just keep playing that same mold to death. People just wouldn't support it if we did that. But I think we got a lot of mileage out of those first 2 molds. So we're really happy with those.
Holy jeez. That is crazy. All that. So you go through the whole process. You work and start getting it shipped and it's arriving in people's hands. What is reception like as people are starting to open these figures and really see the work that got put in?
Amazing. I mean, a lot of people were on that tipping point of starting to get angry, and it's which is strange to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it is strange to me because there's been like 6 or 7 Kickstarters out there for similar materials and similar products. And we were like middle, some are taking way longer to deliver. Some delivered ahead of us, but ultimately we were about 2.25 years, 2 years and a bit. And, from beginning to end. And yeah, like I said, we were starting to hit that tipping point where a couple of people had been vocally upset and we were, super apologetic. But then it was becoming more people were like, hey, when's this happening? Like, come on. We're like, we're trying so hard. We could have rushed product out when we had all the problems and you guys would have hated everything and been pissed off and wanted your money back. But we had to fix and address everything to get this to happen. And then there was a huge mix up at one point in the factory after all that had been sorted out, where I truly think it was an honest mistake amongst a lot of people because of just the conversations that happened after, where I think we got sidelined. We got shelved for 3 months. So for 3 months, nothing, or maybe longer, absolutely nothing was happening while we all thought the others were accomplishing things. So the factory wasn't going forward. We weren't going forward. And it was just this big waiting game. And finally we're like, okay, well, what's happening now? And they're like, what? We're waiting for you. We're like, what? Oh my God. Anyway, so again, when I said this amazing friend of ours, Jason, he stepped in, just having had such a history with these people and the same group that he's worked with for 20 years. He was just like, hey, do you need me to step in and get this finished? And we were like, please, whatever you can do, whatever you can help, however you can help, please. And so he did for free, just as a friend. And that's a paid position in any other toy company. And he was amazing. So, thanked him endlessly, and we're paying him to help us with the next line as a thank you, and also to just keep things going super fast. But so it finally hits. We finally arrive. People, start going out into everybody's hands, and honestly, it was like humbling, and I was just shocked I just assumed because of Red Laser, I knew that I'm going to please maybe 75% of the people. 25% of the people are going to complain. That's about as much as you can hope for. It's just the nature of the toy industry. Some people are super critical. Some people are whatever, happy with what they've got. But this was like, we had very few criticisms. And I feel that the majority of those few criticisms were apt. That's great. That but like 95% of the people that were receiving figures were just gushing about them. And like, I was stunned. They turned out better than even I thought they would,
Yeah.
I guess I'm getting, like it impressed even me. So yeah.
Yeah. I had to make a video probably about a month ago, in response to some people that were so we did a pre-order in February. We ended up, it was supposed to deliver through a miscommunication. It was supposed to deliver in April because everything was done. It was just a new product, new paint app. There was a little mix up with the factory there, which only pushed it back about 20 days. And then our stuff got stuck in the port for, 60 days. Like it took forever. Yeah. And I got some gnarly messages, and I'm very big on I will respond kindly once. And if it keeps going, I'll refund the order. Like I just don't, like we'll take the loss. And, it was people that like, once I started responding, cause I had communicated once a month. That was my goal. Once a month, you're getting an email that says, this is what's going on. And I was furious that final month where someone responded and I just was like, I can't do this anymore. Like you're mad. And it's been 5 months at most. Like this is crazy. There's people that are years down the road.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And yeah, I feel bad because some of my friends are having problems that are taking their toy lines years and show no signs of it coming to an end anytime soon. And they're just getting vilified. And I feel for them, I feel for them. I understand like just how wrong things can go. So
dealing with factory. I mean, you've seen the brunt of it, like how bad it can actually get.
Yeah, I've experienced all of them. And that's the thing. Every production run, I don't know if it's ever going to get to a point where I'm like, oh, I know what to expect because I've done this so many times. I know that it's going to go . Because every single time, I think I've done now probably 9 production runs between Red Laser and Hidden Force and WhiskeyJack and all that. Every single one had a complete, there was one issue with my first run and my 8th run, both had the leg issue, completely different factories, but something I've encountered before. Whereas, every other time it was always something else. So like, I just know that in every production run coming up, there's going to be something. Like, I don't know what it is. Hopefully it's something I've dealt with before so I can give notes on it. But, there's just always a problem with every production run.
Holy moly. Okay, so with all that being said, and the line is done and you have the pieces and it's in people's hands, what's next for WhiskeyJack Toys?
Next is, right now we're working on the next wave of Hidden Force. So 6 more figures and a couple of little fun side projects within Hidden Force. And then hopefully right around this time next year, there'll be the next wave. We're hoping right now for about every 6 to 9 months to have a wave for Hidden Force. But aside from that, next month is Impact. And Impact is the International Military and Police Anti-Crime Task Force. Sorry, had to forget. Okay. I forgot my acronym there. And so Impact is a collection of specialists in law enforcement and militaries from all over the world that have been pulled together to be a bit of a strike team against any sort of international criminal units that operate across many borders where it's difficult for their local law enforcement or militaries to deal with. And, they go for the big fish.
Is this in real life?
No, this
okay.
I know some people are like, don't you want to make that don't you want to kidify that a bit? I'm like, no, I like the idea of having a team that goes out and they're after international drug smugglers and they're, human traffickers and cybercrime. And it's sort of, the things that are modern plagues amongst all nations right now. And it's like, this group is going to go after those people. So yeah. And it's specialists from all over the world and, a big international team. It's our take on the military genre, which everybody else is already doing, but we had to come up with our take.
Yeah.
Which I don't think anybody's really doing an international thing, so we're leaning into that.
Dang.
And then after that comes Chaos, and Chaos is I'd already solicited it. There was a very brief window last year where it could have fit in, and I told everybody that I'm like, this is not a fully finished line. You know, I would love to bring Chaos out now, but it's slated to come out in a year and a half. You know, can we get support for it? And there just wasn't. People were like, I need to see this. I need to see that. I'm like, I just don't have that. So I put it back into its regular proper slot. And Chaos is a villain team, or a villain, I don't know, syndicate. It's just like, there's no good guys in it. It's just teams of villains all against each other, but under one guy, trying to bring them under an umbrella to be the world's biggest villain organization, and you know, whatever. And it's sort of like Game of Thrones meets Legion of Doom kind of. Yeah.
Are kids playing with these?
The ninjas, they are. And we made a very concerted effort to make sure that these appealed to kids. We actually did some focus groups. We did, you know, like in the mid development, which informed a lot of our decisions going forward. We had kids playing with them, and, you know, we gave kids options. We're like putting action figures in front of kids and like seeing if they went for our figures at all. And, you know, we just kept that in mind. The accessories were all designed around the standard Lego rod.
Cool.
So Lego has the brick, but they also have a rod, and a lot of things clip to the rod, or, you know, you can slot the rod into whatever. And so we designed our accessories to be around that rod. So our finger, you know, the figure's hands can hold them, but also if you have Lego, you can actually, you know, interchange your accessories with Lego. Just because we were like, hey, cool. You know, in today's age, kids aren't going to get like 10, 15 figures like we did when we were kids. They might get one. And how boring is that? Well, let's make it interchange with and interact with other toys. So, yeah.
Dude, that's incredible. Holy moly. Yeah. The last part of the podcast is where you get to kind of plug everything, where we can get these figures, if the next line that's directly next, and then how we can support those lines and all that stuff.
For sure. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Well, WhiskeyJack Toys are available right now through, they're actually not even available through our website yet. Well, that's going to launch in the next few weeks. We made the decision to sort of shut the store while we got all the pre-orders out, all the everything, so that everybody could get their stuff first that supported us first. You can get our stuff at Big Bad Toy Store, of course, and Cotswold Collectibles carries our stuff. Both of those you can find online with those keywords. Our store, WhiskeyJack Toys, will come up in the next couple of weeks. So that's where you can find all the Hidden Force stuff. And then Impact goes to Kickstarter next month, September. The Impact Kickstarter kicks off, and we're looking at a year turnaround. Like I said, we have this crack ace, you know, production manager. He's seen what we've got. He's pretty convinced that we can do this in about a year. So maybe we'll give it a little room for error. About a year and a bit is the, you know, the turnaround that we're looking at. And then after that, Chaos. And there'll be lots of stuff out there. If you want to follow any of it, each one of them has a face group, but also WhiskeyJack has a Facebook group where you can get the whole story. But if you want any of the particular lines, go to the individual lines: Hidden Force, Chaos, Impact. Same thing with Instagram. So, yeah, if you want to follow us or learn more, those are the places to find us.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on Toys on Tap.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I want to say I'm just really happy to have one that I've done a few podcasts lately, and I'm happy to have one that's more about the toy biz than anything else. I love talking about that with other toy creators.